Well, here we go, folks. This is a demonstration on Google Earth. This is going to be a little bit different than the one that we had done in the classroom in the face-to-face Intro to Forestry class. I wanted to make something that was shorter and that would actually show the movement of the mouse cursor, which evidently was not showing on the one that I recorded earlier today. So this is going to be quite a bit shorter, and hopefully this will be something that's useful to both the online class and to the face-to-face Intro to Forestry class. So Google Earth is a tool that we use in natural resources. It's become progressively more important and powerful as a tool for doing some basic map work, some basic reconnaissance out there in the field, and it just orients me to different areas that I'm going to be working in. But I actually do full-blown management plans using Google Earth, maps that I've actually generated on Google Earth. So we're going to kind of take a look at that. And I know a lot of you folks are going to be taking the Intro to GIS next semester. This would be a very good precursor if you've never cut your teeth on any kind of mapping software. It's a really good one to kind of get you moving around, kind of looking at coordinate systems, how the basic elements of maps and those sorts of things. So highly encourage you over Christmas break to download this version. I did what I would prefer you all to get is the Pro version. It's free. Okay, so you just Google Google Earth Pro download, and this should pop up. This screen. This is the one I would suggest. Earth Pro on desktop, and you'll have a little download button there. It only takes a couple of minutes for it to download. Now, the difference between Google Earth and Google Maps, which is it's a web-based software. It's one that we all use. I use it all the time when I'm driving places. Google Maps, everything is stored on Google Maps, and it's all based on it's really all on the cloud. Okay, I don't download anything to my computer, whereas Google Earth is some software that I actually load up onto my computer, and what it allows me to do is to create my own files and store those files on my computer. I feel sometimes that that's maybe a little safer, keeping those files so that they're not, all exposed for everybody and anybody to go out and access them. And some folks feel more comfortable when your files dealing with their property are not available out there in the in the big blue world there. So anyway, this is Google Maps. Essentially the same, but everything is stored on the web. So I'm going to open up Google Earth right now. It's already been attached to my taskbar. Probably one of the first things you'll want to do is to I have both the older Google Earth and then I have Google Earth Pro. This is the one I suggest you get. So when you get it, you'll see a folder that says Google Earth Pro, and you get this icon that says Start Google Earth Pro. Right mouse click that, and you'll see right around here in that list, it'll say Pin to Taskbar. So go ahead and do that, and what it'll do is it'll pin it down to the taskbar like mine is right here. Okay, so that makes it opening it up that much easier. It's always right there available for you. You just click on it, and it loads up. And first thing it does is it gives you the startup tip. You can turn that off right there, so it doesn't do that anymore. But it spends a couple of minutes loading up this thing called myplaces.kml. KML is the native format of files that Google Earth uses. Okay, you'll see two versions. You'll see the KML format and the KMZ format. KMZ is just a compressed version. Google Earth can read either one. It doesn't matter. Some software can read KML files but have a difficult time reading the KMZ. Google Earth can read both of them, so it doesn't really matter which way it's stored. You can always load it up into Google Earth and it'll show it for you. Okay, so moving around through Google Earth, just want to show you the basic navigation. I prefer to use a mouse over a touchpad any day. I find it 10 times more maneuverable. I'm using my left mouse button, and I'm just dragging the Earth, and that allows me to do what's called panning. Okay, I can pan up and down. I can pan left or right. Okay. I could also use my roller button in the middle of my mouse. Prefer if you do have a mouse, preferably get one with a roller button on it. If I roll forward, it zooms me in. If I roll backwards, it zooms me out. If I roll forward, I'm going to keep going all the way in. Um, I could press down on the roller and hold it down, and it allows me to tip the earth, what they call oblique views and stuff like that. So um, that's really what allows you to do some really fancy type work with Google Earth. So I'm going to zoom into some of these mountainous areas here, and I'm going to tip it, and now you can kind of see that's really where Google Earth starts to excel. Okay, is the ability to use a three-dimensional terrain model that it drapes the imagery on top of it, and it gives you a real-world look to that. Okay, so uh, so between the roller zooming out, zooming in, twisting the obliqueness of it, and then grabbing it with my left mouse button and panning, I could really fine tune my how I'm going to be visualizing things. Okay, so it's really cool. All right, so that's probably one of the first things you need to know. The other ways that you can navigate using your mouse, and that's with this, I can actually grab that north arrow and turn it north. I can spin it, left, right, and that kind of stuff. That's allowing me to do some of that obliquing, and then this does the panning. Okay, so I can pan different directions. I'll show you where that becomes most useful. It's usually when I'm creating data files. And then here's a zoom in, zoom out. Okay, so these do become handy at times, and but I prefer to use the mouse, and the only time I'll use these is when I'm actually digitizing and creating my own data sets. And I'll show you in a little bit how that works. Down at the bottom, you've got this interface, which continuously tells you what the imagery date is for the imagery that's actually loaded. It depends on where you are on Earth. It's not all imagery is exactly the same date. It also gives you the coordinates of wherever your mouse is. Okay, so this is the latitude and that's the longitude. And so as I'm moving around, it's wherever my cursor is the latitude, longitude. It's also given me the elevation. Okay, and so it's the elevation of the ground. So that's a mountain right there, 12,000 feet. I'm going to go over here. It's a little bit of a valley. It's 2,000 feet down. Okay, so well, actually, that's 13,000 feet. That's 10,000 feet, or 11,000 feet. So you can kind of see that's the ground elevation. And then the eye elevation is based on how far you're zoomed in and out. Okay, so, and I believe that's above mean sea level. All right, so the eye elevation above mean sea level, and then the ground elevation above mean sea level. So we're kind of hanging out somewhere in Wyoming, it looks like. I'm going to go to North Carolina, and what I wanted to kind of show you is the way that we kind of looked at how you move around inside the screen and some of the information that it provides you within the screen. We've got these menu items here, and a lot of these menu items can be, some of the more useful ones are actually right here as these tool buttons. Okay, so we're going to kind of cover some of those, and then we'll look at a couple other menu items. This is where you can save files and stuff like that. Okay, but surprisingly, a lot of the things that you can do here are accessible in the menus as well. So you got the tool buttons, you got the menu items, and then you've got what I call the table of contents, and that's really broken into three sections here. We've got search. I'm going to minimize this. So you got search, places, and layers, and they're all minimized right now. All right. Search is usually just that. It allows you to get to a location, so you could type in your street address, or you could just type in a town, or you could type in some sort of a landmark. I typed in Clyde, North Carolina, and it flies me over there. So here's Clyde. Here's the campus. I'm going to zoom in on it. Come on, we can do it. There we go. So here's the building that we do most of our education in. There's our sawmill down in here, and timber sports shed and all that good stuff. All right, so that's what the search allows you to do. All right, and I'm going to go back to I'm going to go to Jordan. Well, let me see. Yeah, I'm going to just show you a couple of different things, so some of the three-dimensional buildings. So Jordan Hall, NCSU, and that's Raleigh. And I'll do a search on that, just to kind of show you how this works. So it's going to take me right to my old workplace in Jordan Hall, and zooms me right into that part of Raleighwood. And this is all NC State right here. So as I zoom into an area, I may want to actually go to the street view, and that's what this little man does right here. So as soon as I grab the little man, you should see blue lines start to appear on the road systems. And those are roads that the Google car has driven up and down and has taken 360-degree photographs. So I dropped the little street view man there, and now I've got a 360-degree. I'm not sure if it's, whoa, that's pretty scary looking. But you have a 360-degree view, and there's my Jeep right there. So if I want to move forward, I could just, as long as I stay on the road, I could use my roller ball, my roller wheel, and I could roll forward. And I'm just following the route that the Google car did. I can go and see what's coming up from behind me. This car's chasing me, so I better get away. Oh no, it won't leave me alone. No, I guess they stopped. Oh, here they come again. Okay, so one thing that they do is they blot out faces, and they blot out license plates, and they blot out street addresses and stuff like that, so that you can't see who people are, at least for the most part. But you can zoom in to a certain extent on different areas, and so it's really kind of neat. All right. So a lot of times I'll get a landowner that'll call me up, and let's say I get somebody who lives off of Betsy's Gap Road in Clyde, and I'm talking to him on the phone. And lo and behold, I end up, if I knew their street address, it would take me right to their street address. So I end up on their property, and I'm able to see, while I'm talking on the phone with a prospective landowner, or with anybody who has a natural resources issue, I could be looking at the area right there, real time with them. And if I have access to the street view, I could even do some street view recon while I'm talking to them. And so here's some photography. Look, actually, I think I missed the street view on that. Let me try that again. Yeah, there's a blue line there, so I should be able to get the street view. There we go. So 360-degree photograph via the Google car. Thank you, Mr. Google car. So that's kind of nice. I can go up and down the road and kind of see what's going on. And it's just yet another way of kind of taking an inventory of what's going on out there. So again, I'm just using the roller key to zoom in and out, and so that's how we use the search. And of course, you can search anything in the world. You could do the Great Pyramids, of Giza. takes me over the ocean. If I want to see what's going on in India, I can go see that. So there's the Great Pyramid of Giza. Um, One thing that I wanted to show is there's a lot of areas that the let's see, can we get a blue line on that? No, it looks like the Google car didn't drive there. But what other folks have done, and this is under the layers, I'm going to get to the layers next. I'm going to kind of minimize this a little bit. Under the layers, these are pre-made layers that the Google people have put in, and you can't delete these. I can try right mouse clicking them and deleting them, but nothing happens. Okay. Um, so these are always in and up and running on Google Earth, and they're not stored on my computer. It's part of their online streaming. Um, One of them that's kind of cool that is becoming more and more popular is these 3D buildings. So they'll take actually photographs and they'll develop these three-dimensional buildings out of them. They actually had them of Jordan Hall as well. I just didn't turn them on. So just want you to be aware that certain circumstances you can actually kind of see a three-dimensional scape of the architecture of an area. Um, I'm going to go back to the search. I'm going to go to the history on my search, and oh look, there's Betsy Scap. I can go right back to Betsy Scap again. And it brings me right back to where I was before. Okay, so that's kind of nice. So if I'm all done with my history, I can clear it. And clicking this X right here kind of shortens everything, and then I can minimize the search. All right, so just want you to be aware that you can make those things you can expand them or you can minimize them. As far as the layers are concerned, there's a couple of ones that I want you to be aware of. There's a lot of them that are important. Probably the most important ones are the roads. I'm going to turn off 3D buildings. That's I don't use it that much, but the roads are pretty important because it'll it will draw and label some of the more primary roads. So there's I-40, there's Highway 209. Okay, that's very good for orienting myself to an area. I like having that in there. Another thing that's important are these borders and labels. And I'm going to turn off the roads just so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's the borders and labels. Relatively larger areas, they'll put a label on it. So that's the town of Luck, the town of Trust, and then these blue lines are county boundaries. So I'm going to zoom out to Haywood County's boundaries, and so that's Haywood County right here, and it labels it. Okay, so that's Haywood County. If I zoom over to Jackson County, the counties names are in green, and so that's really handy when depending on what scale I'm looking at the map, it'll provide me that information. So between the borders and the labels and the roads, that's about as much background stuff as I like to have, and that allows me to kind of orient myself as to what's going on out there. Unfortunately, they don't have lakes and streams labeled. There are other KML files that you could load up that'll provide you that information, but the Google Earth layers doesn't keep that, right, at least at this point in time. So I'm going to minimize the layers. The only other thing I want to show you that I use routinely with the layers is I'm going to go ahead and put that in that really cool oblique view again, so that you can kind of see the mountains. I can turn the terrain on and off. Okay, so that's relatively new. That was not available as far as I could tell. Maybe I just never saw it before, but I used to turn it off a different way. But sometimes you don't want to have that terrain. It's particularly true when I'm trying to digitize data onto the GIS. I'll get all sometimes when you have a lot of three-dimensional things out there, it might mess you up when you're trying to create data layers. So a lot of times I'll just make it flat, okay, and then I can turn the terrain on afterwards, and I can see how things lay out. I'm not going to turn the terrain off for this though. I'm just going to keep it on, and we'll kind of play with it that way. Something else about the terrain is I can, under tools and options, I can determine the level of exaggeration. Okay, right now I've got it set to 1.5 times the actual elevation. If I set it to 3, basically I'm doing it 3 times the height of what it really is. Okay, so I turn my mountains into the Himalayas here. All right, and so 5,000 foot mountain is now 15,000 feet. And you go, whoa, that's really crazy. That's, I guess, if you're trying to impress people on mountains that you've climbed up and those sorts of things. However, it's not as useful up in the mountains, but it is very useful when you get down to the coastal part of North Carolina. Let's go down to the coastal plain, and let me zoom in on an area. And when you have 3 times the elevation down there, surprisingly now, landscape features start to actually appear. Not very well, but not a very good example. Let me move inland a little bit where it's a little bit less like a pancake. So here, you can start seeing some very minor landscape details now. Okay, and I wouldn't be able to see that if I didn't have that three-dimensional set to three times the vertical exaggeration. If I set this to let's go back and set it to 1, and you go, huh? What? What slope, right? And you can see it a little bit, but it really makes it stand out a lot more when you exaggerate it. So for the most part, people will say. People who do this routinely say about 1.5 or exaggerate it by another 50%, and that usually helps for you to get a pretty good view of what's going on. So I'm just going to go back to Betsy's Gap. And once you type something in a few times, it kind of recognizes it, and so I didn't have to type in the whole thing this time. So I'm there, and back where I was before. And so, terrain, roads, borders, and labels, those are good layers to leave on. You could explore some of these other things a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and open up places and minimize both the search and the layers. And the places is where I keep all my work. Okay, KML files that I want to create in Google Earth, or KML files that I want to load in that somebody else has made, this is where I load them into, is places. Okay, so this is all my work. And what's really cool is, well, first of all, there are 2 places. There's my places, and then there's temporary places. And as one might expect, temporary is just that. When I go to quit out of Google Earth, anything that's in here will get deleted. Anything that's in here will stay. And every time I open up Google Earth, it'll pull these right back in again. And so if I have projects that I like to have available, that I'm currently working on, I don't have to go out and find them and open them all up each time. They just get pulled right into Google Earth every time I open Google Earth up, which is really handy. And that's very, very nice. So I keep projects in folders. And so some of them are not. Some of them are a little bit sloppy. But this Raccoon Creek, the watershed delineation, test tracks, those sorts of things are all ones that are projects of mine that I've stored in folders. And you open up the folder, and you've got different features in there. Okay, so this one is the property boundary of the Raccoon Creek watershed, and this is just a place on the Raccoon Creek. So if I need to go to the Raccoon Creek watershed, basically I just turn it on, double click on the folder, brings me right to it, and there's my project, okay, that I'm working on with that. And this happens to just be this is the test farm. If you're familiar in Waynesville, of the Waynesville test farm, that's where it is, and this is just the watershed that drains into it right at that point. So if I'm tired of looking at that, I can just click Raccoon Creek, turn that off, and it's just, it's gone. So let me go back to Betsy's Gap here, and just, hopefully you're able to see that moving around through Google Earth is extremely simple once you get a feel for how it's laid out. So what I'm going to do is walk you through the process of creating a project. Okay, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to do a property boundary, and then I'm going to do an area that's a field and an area that's a forest. Okay, and we're just going to assume that we know the property boundary already. So it's very simple. What I do is I start off by right mouse clicking my places and go add folder. And I'll call this Betsy's Gap project. Okay, click OK. And there's my folder. It sticks it at the bottom. If I want it to be up at the top of my places, I just grab the folder, drag it up to the top, and then that's the first folder inside my places. Okay, so I have the option, with maps, we have the option of depicting map features as points, lines, and areas. And Google Earth allows us to do that. So, that's a point right there. These roads here are lines, and then areas are obviously aerial features or two-dimensional planes there. Okay, so we're going to create all three of those, and there's a couple of ways you could do it. One is I can click on this tool right here, and that adds a point. They call it a place mark, but it's really a point. I can click on this one, that adds a road. Okay, they call it a path. I shouldn't say a road, but a line feature. That could be whatever I want it to be. It could be a road trail. It could be a pipeline. Could be a power line. Whatever I want it to be. And then this one right here in the middle adds a polygon. You can see it's kind of an area. Okay, so that's one way I can do it. But if I want to make sure that they get stuck inside this folder, I could just right mouse click on the folder and go add. And here's that place mark, path, and polygon. Okay, so let's do a place mark first. I'll make a house. So I selected place mark, and I'm in edit mode. This window is what they call the properties window, and it means I'm in edit mode. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to say Betsy's house. Okay, and see it's already named it right there. If I want to change the icon, I can go ahead and click on the little icon symbol. I'm just going to make it a little white thing. I could change its size, and I could make it more transparent or more opaque. Right now it's set to 100% opacity, which means it's not transparent at all. When I select the icon I want to use, you could actually even create your own icons and load them up there. So now it's a little white dot, and I could change, I can add more information. This is Betsy's house. Alright, so every time I click on it, that's what it's going to show me. That's going to pop up. But before I click OK, I want to actually move it to where it's supposed to be. So you can see it's blinking right there. It's in edit mode still, so I'm just going to say, alright, we'll call this Betsy's house. Okay, and then I click OK, and it stores it. Okay, so notice that Betsy's house is inside the Betsy's Gap project. And when I click on it, it gives me that other information. Okay, if I want to edit that, I say, oh wait, whoa, that wasn't Betsy's house. I need to move it. I could right mouse click Betsy's mouse inside the folder and go properties. That opens up that edit window again. And now I can grab it and move it to where it's supposed to go. Okay? What's also cool is if I have a picture of Betsy's house, and if it's on my computer, I can go ahead and click Add Image and then navigate to where the picture is. And every time I click on that, a little picture will pop up of her house as well. So you get all kinds of flexibility with this. It's really, really slick. So there we go. Right, this is Betsy's house. All right, so the next thing I want to do is create a line, and I'm just going to pretend that she's got a trail, an old horse trail or something that goes around through her property like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a line feature that depicts where that is. And so I right mouse click on the folder again, go add, and this time I'm going to do a path. And notice I've got my little cursor. It's ready. It's in edit mode. It's in that little square. And first I'm going to give it a name. We'll call it Horse Trail. Okay. And I'm going to give the trail a color other than white. We'll make it kind of brown or goldish color. And I can change its thickness. I'm going to make it pretty fat, and I'm going to make this kind of opaque. I'm going to make it like only 30%. That means it's about 70% transparent. Okay, so when I start clicking it, you'll see it's building this line. You can see that it's kind of quasi-transparent. I can kind of see the trees through the image. Alright, so get this going like that. Kind of comes back on itself. So if I double click, it'll be done. Okay, or if I click OK here, it'll be done. But notice while I'm still in edit mode, I want you to kind of see something, that this blue icon, or that blue vertex that's right there, is the last one that I edited. So that's the active vertex. I can make another one active just by moving the cursor over to it and highlighting it. Notice it's green and it's got a little finger pointing at it. So if I click on that, that's now the active vertex, and I can grab that and edit it and move it around. So what I usually will do is I'll create kind of a rough image of what I'm doing, and then I'll fine tune it by going to each one of these vertices and moving them until they're exactly where I want them to be. Okay, and when I'm doing that, sometimes I'll zoom in. All right, so I've kind of rolled in with the mouse. But now if I try grabbing it and dragging it, what happens is that, okay, I tried dragging the map over with it, and all I ended up doing was adding a whole bunch of vertices. So I don't want to do that, and it's kind of an easy fix. I just hit the delete key, and it just deletes all the ones that I just added. But I want to show you at this point, this is when I start using these tools to navigate around. Okay, so I'm just kind of moving around through here slowly, kind of seeing what's going on. Let's see what's down there. Oh yeah, I need to move that one. So I highlight that, make it active, and then I can move it. Alright, so you get the idea. Zoom out, and life is beautiful with it. Okay. Something else I wanted to show you, and I'll go ahead and save this. So that's done. And sometimes it's not really easy to see the ground through the trees. A lot of the aerial photography is done when the leaves are still on. This looks like it was done in October while some of the leaves were still kind of falling off the trees. But this icon right here allows you to see historical imagery. And if you click on that, you can have a little slider. Notice we're at 2015 right now. I could slide back to that next tick mark, and that's 2013. And look at that. That was done in March, way before leaves started to pop back on again. And so I have a really good, clear view of what's going on. So if I, of course, there's no roads right there, but if I had some roads, I can clearly see that stuff through the trees now. Okay, so like this right here, and that right there might not have been as clear in 2000 when all the leaves are on. See, that's pretty much gone. Okay, you can't really tell where it is. So it's always good to do things with leaf off, especially when you're trying to find ground features. All that stuff right there is no way you're going to be able to see that. Okay, so good thing to be aware of. Is try to scroll around. The other thing that's cool about this is you can go way back in time. Here's 1995, and so if you had some significant land use change, you can kind of see when that took place. Okay, and so just be aware of that, the historical thing that's going on with that. And so I'm going to go back and turn this back into 2013 so I can kind of see again. and I'm going to go back and finish my Betsy's project. So I'm going to do 3 area features now. And it's probably smart to keep area features. I can. I'm actually going to put them in their own folder inside the Betsy's Gap project. So you can have folders within folders. It's just like any filing system. So I'm going to right mouse click Betsy's Gap. I'm going to go add folder. I'm going to call this boundary and management units. And click OK. So now I've got a new folder. It's stuck at the bottom of the project. Maybe I want that right up at the top of my project. So notice that it's right inside. That's the very first folder inside Betsy's Gap project. So first thing I'm going to do is an area that depicts the total boundary. And then I'm going to do another 2 areas, one that depicts a field management unit and another one that depicts a forested management unit. Okay, so I right mouse click inside that folder now, click add, polygon. I'm going to call this one boundary, or I can call it property or whatever. Okay, and I'm going to make it, notice when I click color and style now, I have both area and lines. This is the outline of the polygon, and this is the color of the area inside the polygon. Under that I have a couple of options. I could have it filled with no outline, I could have it just outlined with no fill, and I can have it both filled and outlined. Well, let's leave it that first. And notice that I've got a white color for the outline and a white color for the fill. As I start digitizing, you can see it makes it kind of difficult to see what's going on because they're 100% opaque and I can't really see what's going on inside there. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to delete these. I'm just hitting my delete key, and it's still waiting for me to get started. So I'm going to just change this. Usually what I'll do is I'll just make it outlined. So the outline color, I'm going to make that some bright color that I can clearly see. I might make it kind of fat. I'm going to make this like 5 wide. And then I can start digitizing. Let's say I know that this is Betsy's property here. So I'm just going to follow her property boundaries. And let me see, I'm going to scroll down a little bit using that. And let's just say I happen to know that her property does something crazy like this. And then I'm going to follow the road. Okay, so let's say that's the boundary. Okay, now I can zoom in again, and I can tailor it so that it's much more accurate. And I can grab this and drag that exactly where it needs to go and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and when I get everything perfect the way I like it, I click OK. And so that's stored. Alright, so let's say, oh wait, I zoom in over here now and I go, oh man, I wish I didn't mess that part up right there. So I can go back and put it in edit mode. I right mouse click it, go properties, there's all my vertices, I can grab that one. Okay, so there's no harm done. It's you have all this editing flexibility that you can work with. And so, just want you to be aware of that. The other thing that for areas, see, I could type in a description. When I click on it, the description pops up like it did for that point feature. There's my styles and colors. But over here under measurements, as I'm creating this thing, I can actually have it calculating the acres. That's extremely important. That's, you want to be able to calculate acres and provide that kind of information for a landowner. So that information's right there. Okay. If I want it to be even more prevalent, I can, under properties, I can go see what the measurements are, 84.9 acres, and then under description I can go 84.9 acres. Whoops. 0.9 acres. And when I click OK, boom. So it's right there with it. Okay. If I click on it, it gives me the information associated with it. Okay, so now the other thing I want to do is create a couple of management units, and I'm going to just say this is inside that folder. I'm going to add another polygon. I'm going to call this Field 1, and I'm going to change its color. It's still just an outline, but I'm going to make this like green for a field, and I'm just going to kind of quickly follow that. Okay, and I got its measurements. It's 6 acres. I could type that in. Okay, and then I've got this whole forested area that I'm gonna talk about. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another polygon. I'm gonna call this mixed hardwoods. And if I have 3 or 4 different distinct stands of timber, like white pine versus a young hardwood stand, an older one, I can keep doing this until I've got the whole property accounted for. And I probably would. I usually don't leave any part of a property without a polygon on it and addressed in some way. Even if it's an area that I'm not managing, I would do a polygon and call it an unmanaged area. Because you're accounting, you need to account for everything in these. So here's that. I'm going to change its color. Let's make it red. So we can clearly tell that that's a hardwood stand. If I needed to, I can go in there and adjust all those points. Okay, how big is that? 60.5 acres. Okay, and click OK. So there you go. All right, there's a couple of different things, and of course I would probably account for all these little areas as well, so that everybody is accounted for. But let's say I'm pretty much happy with what I got right now. So I've got the areas, I've got the acreages associated with it, and I want to share this information with Betsy now. I want to go ahead and I know she's got Google Earth, and I know she'd like to see her property on Google Earth, so I'm going to email her this KML. Alright, so basically what I do is I will right mouse click the project folder. I'll go Save Place As, and I just stick it in a folder on my C drive somewhere. I'm just going to call it Betsy's Gap Project. Okay, and it's going to save it as either a KMZ or a KML. I could choose either one. Doesn't really matter. Our Google Earth can read both of them. So I'm just going to give it the same name as one I had previously had in there, and I click Save, and it says it exists. Do you want to override it? And I say, yeah, go ahead. All right, so I've done that, right? And I just want to show you that there's no hooju up my sleeve here. That basically I'm going to delete this thing, so it's gone, right? And I'm also, to show you that this is not magic, I'm going to just quit out of Google Earth, okay, completely. So now I'm going to go into just going to open up my email. I'm going to send myself a little love letter, pretending I'm sending this to the landowner, and I'm just going to call it Betsy's Gap Project, and just attach it. Right, just a regular old email attachment. I gotta go find it. Oh, it's in here. There it is, right there. So that's where I stored it, and that's the file. I insert it, and then I send it. Boom, done. Wait a couple of minutes, and then old Bessie gets the project there. All right. So notice I don't have Google Earth up and running. That's there on my taskbar, but it's not running right now. So I open up the email, and so I'm pretending I'm her now, right? And she opens up her email. She goes, "Oh, look, there's that K," and I'll put a little thing in there. Open up this KMZ file, so she'll do that. And this just says, make sure it's from a trustworthy source, and go ahead and save it. Whoop, I'm just gonna go ahead and open it. Come on. Here we go. So what it does is my computer recognizes, and hers will too, and everybody's will, that the KMZ file is associated with Google Earth. It'll actually open Google Earth up, okay? Open up, and it's going out and it's loading up My Places, which does not have her project in it yet, okay? So it loads that up, and but what it does is under temporary places, it sticks her project. Not only that, but it zooms me in to that project, to the latest thing that's been added. So she doesn't have to know anything about navigating in Google Earth. All she has to do is know how to open up an email attachment, and it'll bring her right to her property. So, you want to talk about a really good way of sharing information with people. And so now Betsy can kind of check all her stuff out, and we could talk. It gives us something to talk about. What do you want to do on this this area right here? What do you want? How big is that? Oh, you click on it. That's 60 acres. Okay. How about your whole property? Yeah, it's 85 acres. Okay. So lots of good stuff there. All right. So if she wants to keep that on her Google Earth, all she has to do is grab it and drag it into My Places. Let me make it bigger. Drag it into my Places, and boom, there it is. Okay. And she could turn. What's nice about this, I can turn off that whole folder for the areas, or I could turn the whole thing on, or I can open the folder up and just turn off the boundary, or turn off field 1, turn off the mixed hardwoods. Okay, so you can turn on and off any one of these things. And so it's a very, very easy way of moving around and exploring your data. There's a couple other things that I wanted to show you before we left here, and one is as an engineer, a person who might be making roads or trail systems, a lot of times you don't want to exceed certain slopes. So this line right here, let me go ahead and get access to that line. There's there it is, the horse trail. If I right mouse click that horse trail, one of these options I have available is the show elevation profile. If I click on that, check that out. Give it a second. So this is the elevation profile. You can see up here, wherever I am down here, it's showing me where I am. So now I'm going down. I got a -% slope. Now I got a positive slope. Now I got another negative slope. I got positive. And so the thing is, if that slope starts to exceed, like in this case, if you look up here, you can see I'm like way up at 34%. I may want to move things around and change that. So check this out. I'll go down to the roads. I'll put it in edit mode. Click on the properties. It puts it in edit mode. And now I can grab this and watch what it does to my profile. And kind of get those big old nasty steep areas. And so you want to talk about a quick and easy way of engineering roads and trail systems. It's a very, very cool system. So once you get things set up the way you like it, you go ahead and hit OK, and it saves it like that. You can close your profile, and you are done with that. So very handy tool. Okay. Another thing that's very important to be able to provide landowners are information regarding their soils that they have on their property, and to be able to look at the topographic features that are out there, ridges and stuff like that. Now I know you can see topographic features. You can see that's a peak and this is a ridge and stuff like that. But you may want to actually look at the original topographic map. And Google Earth doesn't provide that for you in those layers down here, but there are some other vendors out there that provide information. So here's one that does a live streaming of all the soils in the United States. And all I have to do is turn it on, and it turns on the soils. Any one of these soils, oh, whoops, I lie. That's an old one I've got. Let me see. I'll pull that in. Okay, so, but we'll look at soils in just a second. But first we'll do the topographic. So I turn that on, and basically what it does is it drapes the topographic map over your area. So now you can clearly see that this is a little peak right here. That's a little saddle between this peak and this ridge up there. So now you can actually see the topographic features, and you can see the elevational lines. You can see where our streams, that's a little V of a stream pointing up. You can see ridges pointing down. There's a little U of a ridge pointing down. Stream systems and all that kind of stuff. So very, very handy tool. All right, and so that, and then the soils one is also very handy. And so what I wanted to show you, and I've done this for both classes, the online and the regular class, the regular face-to-face class, is I've posted these on Moodle for you, right where this video is. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get into Moodle. If I can remember my... There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to pull it up here. So there's a folder at the very bottom of the general information section, KML files for Google Earth, and that's the one we were just looking at. That's the topo map, and there's one for the soils. So you can just click on that, it downloads it, and you can go ahead and say open when done. And I could do the same for this one. Oh, let me go back there. For the soil, and go, did it do it? Oh, it already did. Alright. So because Google Earth's already open, it already just loaded that stuff up for me. And you see, I may have opened it up more than once. Nope. Okay, so that's the topographic data, and all this stuff in here is all that soils data. I'm just going to minimize that. Alright, so if I like these things, if I want to keep them, I could just go ahead and drag them. I already got the topo there, so I'm not going to drag that one up, but let me drag the soil up. I'll just dump it right there. It'll just stick it in right below the earth point. So now every time I open up Google Earth, those two things will be in there. And what it does is, as I'm zooming in, I'm going to go back to my Betsy's project. I'm going to turn on the polygons, and I can see what soils are inside my polygons, right? So this SDD, this SDC, the CTC, CX, PWF, those all mean something, okay? Those are all a very important soil series, and you'll learn all those next year in the fall when you take the soils class. But for now, just want you to be aware that you have access to that information. All you got to do is click on it, okay? And as long as that layer is turned on, when I click, that's what it's going to pull up. So it's saying that SDC is a sonic loam, and it tells me information about it. If I want to get some forestry type information about that soil, I just click on that, the little link for the sonic soil. Give it a second. It'll load it up. Come on, love, you can do it. And there we go. It opens up an internet window. Goes out to their website. This is actually the University of California, Davis, that has done this for everybody. It covers the whole United States. So here's that sonic soil. It's talking about it. Okay, it's giving you all this information about it, and it tells you what types of plants like to grow on it. It tells you what types of trees do best on it. So yellow poplars do really well. Eastern white pines do really well. And then it also gives you information about, where's forestry? Right here. Log landing suitability, it's moderately suited. Can I get equipment out there without messing it all up? Well, it's moderately suited. It's well suited for site preparation. All right, so all that kind of stuff is, it gives me some basic information about what those soils are good for in terms of forestry. So you want to talk about a really handy thing, all right, and and again, I've click on this one here. That's a plot soil. It does the same thing. You know, I can open up the information for the plot soils and all that. So you've got these soils maps. You've got these topo maps. You've got all this really cool information that you can provide landowners regarding their properties. And when you're all done and it's all said and done, you're ready to make a final map. I'm going to turn the soils off. You can go out here to the where it's a little printer, and what it will do is it'll create a oh, I'm in the wrong Google Earth. It'll actually create a map for you in Google Earth Pro. Let me do that again over here. Let me get rid of this. I need to delete regular Google Earth off my computer. It's just gets confusing. Alright, so give her just a second. I'm probably gonna have to reload. Oh, still got Betsy Scout. And so let's go there. And now when I go to print it in Google Earth Pro, it'll actually create a map template for me with a legend. I can move that wherever I want. I got a title. I can say Betsy Scat Project. Okay. Under map options, I've got all these different configurations I can choose, and what it didn't do is it didn't load up the folder data, which is kind of unfortunate. So, but I could always edit that stuff in later. And the other thing that's really important that it gives you, though, is it gives you a scale bar, it gives you a north arrow, and a title. And again, you can move any of that stuff anywhere you want. Okay, so kind of nice. And then usually what I'll do is I'll save it as a PDF. And what I found is when I'm saving it as a PDF, I'm just going to call it Betsy. When I save it as a PDF, what I end up having to do typically is make these lines much fatter. For some reason, even though I set these at 5, they tend not to be really very fat. And the PDF, they just end up these really tiny little slivers. So you're probably really good off to set them to like 10 or 15. Some really fat line. It looks stupid on Google Earth, but what I should have done is I should have shrunk this down too a little bit. Okay, because that was outside the. But basically, let's see if it's. I don't know if it's going to load that up automatically. I may have to go find it. There it is. Let's see what the PDF looks like. Oh, somebody else is using it. It's probably. I need to close out of that. And there we go. So not too bad. If I made those lines thicker, like 10, they'd showed up a little bit better. And if I zoomed that out, but here you got a really nice map that you can include in your report, and all kinds of really cool stuff. And then once I get this into my report, I could always edit in. I can annotate things like this is the, this is the mixed hardwoods. I could annotate the acreages and that kind of stuff in there. So. All kinds of cool stuff. So pretty much that is what I wanted to cover in here. And so I kept this under an hour. I think I went an hour and 20 minutes on the other, an hour and 15 minutes. And I think I didn't crack as many stupid jokes while doing this. Plus, you were able to see the cursor. So overall, it was a win for everybody. And I do thank you all. And if you do have any questions on this, please feel free to get up with me. Okay, y'all take care now. Bye.